Good morning. I'm Gregory Mason, and welcome to First Presbyterian Church for Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church's service. Before we start, we'll do some announcements. As I've mentioned, there will be no weekly news sent out this month. In the meantime, any church announcements can be sent to me. We are happy to have Alejandro and Brian back from their time away. And I'd like to thank our volunteers today, our ushers, Kathy Carson and Joe Cushing, our Zoom host, Anita Miller, and our coffee hour host, Gina Cesars, Rachel Trobaugh, and Chris Gasik. Please join us for coffee hour in Erman Hall following the service. For those joining us on YouTube, log into Zoom after the service for your coffee hour. The link is in today's email.
Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church. I would like to begin by extending a warm welcome to Patty Potter Fitchett, who is the Director of Community Worship at Bradford Community Church UU in Kenosha. Thank you, Patty, for leading our service this morning. I am Suzanne Landis, your worship associate for today's service, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. As we gather, we remember our mission as a church is to be a community of hope, one that challenges us to transform ourselves, promote love and justice, respect all faiths, and shepherd our planet. Together, we journey toward wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. And as a people committed to the work of justice, we covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. Let us claim and celebrate the promise of our UU faith, that all of who we are is welcome in this co-created sacred space, both in person and online.
Good morning, and good morning to those of you joining us online. Thank you, Suzanne. I am Patty. My pronouns are she and her. We begin our time together with sacred ritual, the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Lighting our chalice for us this morning is Cody. The reading for the chalice lighting is by the Reverend Connie Simon. This is the hour. The time has come. Mindful of our responsibilities as leaders of this faith and guardians of the living tradition, we call upon that great cloud of witnesses, those who came before, those who are here now, and those yet to come. We seek their presence, love, and support in this place at this hour. We kindle this flame to light their path and call them near as we undertake this sacred work. And so I invite you to join me in rising in body or in spirit as we join together in song in hymn number 391 in the gray hymnal. Alejandro will play it through one time and we'll sing it together twice.
Sorrow and pain still will remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears through all the year, singing, voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain still will remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears through all the years, singing.
And now it's time for the message for all ages. So if all the children and those young at heart can come on forward. Here comes Kaylin. We're short of kids because it's summer. People I know are camping this weekend. So this morning I'm going to read the story for you, and this is a fabulous book. And it's called Maddie's Fridge, and it's written by Louise Brandt. When Sophia and Maddie played at the park, they stretched their toes to the sky. They climbed to the top of the ladder and flew off the end of the slide. They stayed until the buildings grew long shadows, and even the taxis stopped honking. Sophia's stomach growled. I give up. Let's get a snack. No way, Maddie said. Let's stay here. Yes way. Sophia ran to Maddie's building and raced up the stairs. Wait! Maddie ran after her. Maddie was the best climber, but Sophia was the fastest runner. Sophia swung open the door of Maddie's fridge. What have you got? We have milk, Maddie said. I'm saving it for Ryan. He's still little. Why doesn't your mom go to the store? Sophia asked. We don't have enough money. But what if you get hungry? Well, we have some bread. I guess I'll go home to eat, Sophia said. Please don't tell anyone, Maddie said. Okay, promise? I promise. Sophia ran home past the bookstore and the grocery store. The sun went down behind the buildings and took all the colors with it. Sophia's fridge was full of milk and eggs and tortillas and cheese and lettuce and jam and salsa and tofu and even half a can of dog food. Good timing, Mom said. Dinner's almost ready. Here you go, Mom said. Sophia and Louis each ate a plate of fish and rice. Mom had a plate of fish and rice. Even Pepito had his bowl of dog food with a little bit of fish and rice. And Maddie and Ryan only had some bread and a small carton of milk. Sophia couldn't tell Mom. She had to keep her promise to Maddie. That night, Sophia had an idea. Yuck, Maddie said the next day. Oh, Sophia said, double yuck. Fish may be good for kids, but fish is not good for backpacks. That night, Sophia, Louis, and Mom ate frittata. Pepito had his dog food with a little bit of frittata. Maddie and Ryan still had an empty refrigerator, and Sophia couldn't ask for help. That would break her promise. She had to try again. After dinner, Sophia packed eggs for Maddie and Ryan. Yuck, Maddie said. Double yuck, Sophia said. Eggs may be good for kids, but eggs are not good for backpacks. That night, Sophia, Louis, and Mom had burritos. Pepito had his dog food with a little bit of burrito and no salsa. Maddie and Ryan still had an empty fridge. Sophia wished she hadn't promised Maddie. The next morning, Sophia put 2 burritos in her backpack along with tortillas, beans, cheese, and even some milk. The next day, no thanks, Maddie said. You haven't even looked, Sophia said. Is it fish? Maddie asked. No. Is it eggs? No. Is it gross? I don't know, Sophia said. Maddie shook the backpack. Something sloshed. Let's look together, Maddie said. 1, 2, 3, go! Burritos are good for kids and good for backpacks, too. Do you want some milk? Sophia asked. Thanks, Maddie said, but I'll save the milk for Ryan. After they finished playing, Sophia walked home past the bookstore and grocery store. She thought and thought. Her own fridge was full of milk and juice and chicken and yogurt and bread and carrots and even half a can of dog food. Maddie's fridge only had 2 tortillas, a cup of beans, a bit of cheese, and a lot more milk than before. So Sophia didn't want to break her promise, but she couldn't help Maddie alone. Sophia told. She hoped Maddie wouldn't be mad. I'm glad you told me, Mom said. Let's see what we can do together. They loaded grocery bags with milk, flour, chicken, carrot, sugar, oil, and even frozen meats and vegetables. At Maddie's apartment, the moms talked. Louis and Ryan played, and Sophia and Maddie ran to the park. You broke your promise, Maddie said. I'm sorry, Sophia said. Are you mad? A promise is important, Maddie said. You're more important, Sophia said. I wanted you to have milk too. Maddie smiled. Are we still friends? Sophia asked. Always, Maddie said. Double always, Sophia said. Isn't that wonderful? It reminds me of our love pantry across the street, that we are feeding a lot of people, not just homeless people in this part of town, but a lot of people in need, because there are a lot of people that don't have enough food to eat. And now it's time for the children's blessing. Okay, you ready? We are blessed We are blessed by being here. We are blessed by being here together.
There are many ways that we give to the life of our church, and our monetary offering is just one of those ways. Each month, we partner with a local organization that is doing good work in our community, and we share the money that we gather. Our partner for the month of August is Hope's Center of Racine. Joining us this morning to tell us about this important organization is Scott Metzel.
Thank you. Recognizing the worth and dignity of each person, Hopes helps people end their homelessness. And we work together very closely with other organizations that do similar things. I'm sure you're familiar with HALO and Women's Resource Center, Safe Haven of Racine, Hospitality Center, Racine Vocational Ministry. We work very closely with all of those. But what we specialize in, or what makes us different, is we are the street team here in Racine. We work with people who are homeless and living outside on the streets at night. We have a street outreach team that goes out to visit people who live outside. And in the month of July, we had over 70 different people living on the streets in the city of Racine, Mount Pleasant, Sturtevant, few in Union Grove, and 2 in Burlington. 70 people living outside, and you know there's been a lot of rain out this summer. It's been a little rough. And people who live outside, it's very interesting. They're all different. Some of them are out for very short periods of time, a few nights, some for weeks, some for months, some even for years, depending on their situation that's going on. And one thing that makes them different from people who go to shelter, who walk it through the door in different agencies, is most of them never call us to tell us that they're there and are not looking for help. So they're in places where they're hiding most of the time, and they're not looking for help, and it's the job of street outreach first to go out and find them, and then talk to them at night and get to build a relationship with them. And we offer services. We have basic things like blankets and socks and soup and water and coffee. And what's amazing is the number of times that someone could be just sleeping on cement somewhere and say, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm good. You know, and they're not looking for that at all. They're not wanting to go to shelter. And we just start from there and talk to them, say, okay, can we come back and see you again? And keep coming back and visiting until we build a relationship of trust with that person. Because what we found with the people with whom we work on the streets, we could say we can help you get into shelter, we can look at housing, we could do this. It's not very interesting to people until they trust us, because there are people who have had a lot of broken relationships in the past, a lot of disconnections, a lot of barriers. So that's what we do. We go out at night, here downtown and different places, people living in tents in the woods that we have to go through woods and find them, in abandoned buildings. So we go to boarded properties and look for ones that have been breached, and then go in and see if there's anybody inside, around public buildings, in cars, all of those things. It's a bit of a challenge sometimes, but we work on it, and we really appreciate your support and everything you're doing for the community and also for Hope Center in this. And as I look out here this morning, I see a lot of familiar faces and supporters, so it's good to be speaking to a friendly audience here this morning. And I heard you mention your food pantry here. I know a lot of people who benefit that and use that on a regular basis. So thanks for all you do here in the community and in our town of Racine, and also thank you for support of Hope Center this morning. Thank you very much.
Part of being in community is sharing our lives with one another. When we gather, we bring with us the joys and the sorrows that are on our hearts. And being here reminds us that we do not hold them alone. In this sacred space, we share our joys and our sorrows in many different ways. This morning, you are invited to come forward and light a candle while Alejandro plays music for us. We will light one more candle for the joys and sorrows that are on the hearts of our beloveds online. Please join with me now in singing, "There is a love holding me, there is a love holding us." The words are in your order of service.
Ultimate grace, the heart of every matter, in every perfection and imperfection, in all senses and tenses, in moments of every right and wrong, presenting choices to inquiring hearts. You are in the purpose and the journey of mishaps. You are in moments of understanding and misunderstanding. We have but to seek and invoke you and enable the work of your Spirit. As prayer is but an articulated common dream, we invoke our ultimate concern for the work of faith. We long to be hand in hand, creating a world where everyone belongs. Free us from our hindrances. Make invisible things visible, the voiceless heard. Lay what is hidden before us. Make the chained unbound, the doubting believe. What is confusing, let clarify. As hardened hearts grow soft to the touch, may we come in fullness with gratefulness, in faithfulness to one another. May we speak in kind conversing, disclosing our truths with care, expressing our practical wisdom to learn its practical limits. For the world was not meant to be possessed by a singular truth, but to be built together upon revelations. O universe with stars in your hair, you have shown that great things emerge from humble beginnings, no matter how flawed and lacking. That one story in a stable, in prison, in the cave, in destitution, in abject poverty, if lived in all sincerity, can liberate from darkness the many. May our eyes seek to appreciate, our breaths to dedicate power, our hands to warm each other. When loving fearlessly, we are invincible. When free will is deliberate, we are pivotal. When dreaming together, we are infinite. Remind us of the very questions that we have turned away from, that we thought could not be answered or are impossible to realize. Dear universal intelligence, your embrace contains everything, but contains nothing. In the ever-insistence of existence, may this one moment count. Amen. So, you've undoubtedly seen us. We're everywhere you look, at Walmart or at Aldi. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting one of us. We're poor people. Some of us are fat. Some of us have bad teeth. Some of us have drug or alcohol dependency issues. Some of us struggle with our mental health. Some of us are uneducated, and some of us are doing the best we can to overcome the circumstances of our birth or upbringing. A few years after my ex-husband and I got married, he started his own business, and I became a stay-at-home parent. Because our dreams were big and our funds were limited, we spent more than 25 years sharing a duplex, first with his parents and then with his mom after his dad passed away. The dual living arrangement allowed us to live a good, if not fancy, life while keeping the cost of living low. Now, sharing a home with family members is not for everyone. I often kid my dear mother-in-law, who I kept custody of in the divorce, that the best thing about having your mother-in-law live upstairs is that she never comes to visit you on vacation. But it can ease everyone's financial burden. Compromises in living situation and sharing cramped quarters with relatives are things that poor people know about. The poor people that I reference here are employed. Now, some of us are at jobs that end sentences that we hear non-poor people say. Things like, you couldn't pay me $1 million too, or I'm never gonna work at a job where you. Whether you fill in the blank with work third shift or work for minimum wage or work in a factory or work at a call center or work at a job where you say, do you want fries with that? You're making a judgment call about the person who does that job. Now, non-poor people also get a lot of perks that the working poor don't get. Now, even if you're lucky enough to have health insurance, sometimes the deductibles can be so high that you can't even afford to take advantage of your health insurance. And dental insurance, please. Even the most simple little procedure can be far beyond the cost of even somebody with health insurance. Now, those of you who know me pretty well know that about a year and a half ago, I had some pretty severe dental issues. Out of my 4 front teeth here, one was almost entirely missing, one was half gone, and one was about a third chipped away. It looked awful. It looked awful, and I felt just awful because I kind of do part of my living at public speaking. And, you can say that you don't judge people by how they look, but, when you're the public speaker and you're missing 3 of your front teeth, it's not a good look. And I didn't feel good about it. And there was no way that I could afford that dental work. So I felt really, really sorry for myself about it for a couple of months. And then I put out a GoFundMe, and I asked my friends for the help. And I raised over $8,000 in less than a week. So I'm a pretty lucky frickin' girl. But not everybody can do that. And it doesn't work for all the teeth. It kind of just works for the 4 front ones. Every time I have a molar that's got a crack, I can't put out another GoFundMe. Oh, going to the dentist, please pitch in. But it's a very sorry, sad state of affairs that, simple health care things are out of reach for so many people. Now, and you hear a lot about poor people again when a poor person is arrested for a drug crime or for drunken driving. You hear, well, if he's got money for beer or drugs, he should have money for his family. Now, and it's true that any money spent on non-essentials to the detriment of the family is wrong. We somehow really overlook the challenges of dealing with addiction and substance abuse with no professional help. There was a story in the news not too long ago about a sweet young thing who sang the national anthem at a sporting event, and apparently she did a very poor job, and afterwards said, oh, you know what, I was drunk and I'm going to rehab. And everybody was like, oh, that's a very good decision. Well, you know what? I worked at criminal court for a couple of years, and a lot of people made really bad decisions when they were drunk, and the judge would often say, you know what? You need to get sober. And that was the end of the discussion. And to a lot of people, that was as well, the judge might have said, you know what? You should go climb Mount Everest. So, now the reason I started thinking about this topic at all is the reason that I think a lot of good sermons get written is because I saw an episode of The Daily Show. So, and the Reverend Dr. William Barber was on. Now, if you're not familiar with Dr. Barber, he is one of the guiding forces behind the modern-day Poor People's Campaign. He's an American Protestant minister, social advocate, and he's a professor at Yale Divinity School. And he came out of the box swinging on The Daily Show. He's got a new book called White Poverty. And he says, the way we measure poverty in this country is not only a lie, it's a damn lie. We say if you make above $13,000 a year, you're not poor. $13,000 a year. This amount has not been adjusted for inflation since the 1960s. He said, we marginalize poverty, then we racialize it. We put up a picture of a black woman on welfare, and it racializes and demeans black people, but also dismisses the tens of millions of white poor people. He says it's about class, not about race. So I immediately went out and bought his book, White Poverty. And this was one of the first stories in the book. He says, Dr. Barber says, I was sitting in the study of the church I pastored for 30 years when one of our deacons knocked on the door. He said, Pastor, do you have a moment? Come on in, I said. We've got a young woman here asking if we can help her with $50 to pay her light bill, the deacon said. Who is it, I asked, and he told me her name. Well, let's do it, I replied, moving quickly to try to figure out how we could get the money to the power company before they sent someone to shut off her electricity. I'd already been pastoring long enough to know that folks in the community almost never come to ask for help until there's little to no time left. But Pastor, the deacon interrupted, don't you think we should do something to help her find a job? He couldn't imagine that a working person could be in a situation where she wasn't able to pay her bills. But I knew this woman. She worked 2 jobs and still barely made enough to keep a roof over her head. An unexpected flat tire on her old hand-me-down car was an emergency. A new set of 4 tires would have been an unimaginable expense. What was true for our community is also true for America. We are, as a people, unable to address the crisis of poverty because we do not see it. According to the federal government, nearly 40 million Americans, 11.6% of the nation, are poor. That's more than 1 in 10 people, which is not insignificant in the richest nation in the history of the world. But it is a number that we have learned how to explain in the stories we tell ourselves about poverty, and they just aren't true. We undercount poverty in ways that we allow us to act like it's normal and not a failure of our collective responsibility to ensure freedom and justice for all. Without thinking about it, the deacon in our church assumed that a person who came up short at the end of the month had failed in some way. Not that we as a people had failed her. How could someone be poor if they were working? From the least to the greatest, we've all learned to see poverty that way. Our vision has been distorted by all kinds of lies. For a more accurate picture of poverty as it is experienced today, some researchers have added this basic question: who would not be able to meet their basic monthly expenses if they had a $400 emergency this month? An unexpected trip to the doctor or mechanic, for example. Think about the flat tire that the sister who asked our church for help lived in fear of. When we look at poverty through the lens of practical necessity, 140 million Americans are poor or low income, a full 43% of the country. Most people cannot see that poverty is an epidemic impacting nearly half of Americans. And this is what you never hear. Most of America's poor are white. I sound the alarm about white poverty because I'm convinced that we can't expose the peculiar exceptionalism of America's poverty without seeing how it impacts the very people that our myths pretend to privilege. And the fact that he said on The Daily Show that really caught my attention was poor and low-wage people now represent 30% of the electorate in this country. And so Dr. Barber says, the stones that the builder rejected are now the cornerstones of this experiment called America. When the rejected get together, we can in fact redeem America from hate and discrimination. When the rejected join hands, our togetherness becomes the instrument of redemption, and we can revive and ensure that the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and equal protection under the law and care for the common good will never be taken away or forfeited for anybody, anytime, anywhere. But what does that mean for UUs in southeastern Wisconsin? It reminds us to be cognizant of money and wealth and poverty and generosity and scarcity. It helps us see beyond our own circumstances when we make decisions that affect the larger community. Reverend Barber reminds us that low-income folks comprise 30% of our electorate. We need to take a hard look at how our churches also. We need to take a hard look at our churches also and what we ask of our members and how we value and appreciate each other. I have two stories that I'm sure that you can relate to. First of all, down at Bradford, we have a church auction. I know you guys do too. We get a big hunk of our money every year from the auction. We do very well with it. Now, as a poor person, I always felt really weird at the auction, especially we have things where there's dinner. Somebody will have, the homemade paella dinner, and so they'll offer 8 seats at the dinner, and so people, $100, $120, $130, and finally the seats will go for $250, and so 8 people will pay $250 for 8 seats at the dinner, and I always felt like, I can't pay $250 for 8 seats at the dinner, and so I always felt real left out and real about that. Well, a couple of years ago, we started a thing where you can buy tickets, and they pull a ticket, and the person who gets the winning ticket gets to choose 2 seats at one of these fancy schmancy dinners. And that went over really well because all of our poor people are like, ooh, 2 seats to the paella dinner, please. And so it was just one of those ways. Now, we're not going to stop having the auction, and we're not going to stop the people from bidding $250 if they can afford to bid that. But we're helping the folks who might not come to the auction because they feel awkward that they can't pay $250 for a dinner. We're helping them to feel like they belong at that event too, and having more things at the auction, like a white elephant sale and a bake sale and more things that anyone can afford. So just being more cognizant of everyone in the church and how everyone can contribute. And finally, now, I don't want to brag, but back at Bradford Church, I am friends with people who are on the finance committee. Now, I want you to just treat me like a regular person. But a couple of weeks ago, a bunch of us were meeting, and apparently something happened in one of the urinals in the downstairs bathroom. Something broke and water ran, and there was a plumbing bill and there was a water bill that was like exorbitant, and it was unexpected and nobody noticed it for a while, and they were talking about it, and the bill to fix it was exactly the amount of my yearly pledge. And boy, did I attach a lot of meaning to this. That totally, it took away my total reason for giving to the church, and that just, balanced out and took away my whole gift, and wah. And then I realized that my gift to the church is not the check that I sign, and neither is any of your gifts to the church. I mean, none of us should stop signing those checks, but that's not what our gifts are. So my realization this week is that my worth is more than a broken urinal. So you can all take that with you this week. So I'm going to end with this little prayer. Don't be about the money, be about the work. May we see all as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call we answer now. To be the barrier and the bridge, to be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of building the beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. And now please rise in body or in spirit and sing hymn number 109 as we come marching.
As we come marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 workshops great, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, as we come marching, we battle too for men, for they are women's children, and we mother them again. Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. As refreshing spirits new. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we come marching, marching, we bring the greater days. The rising of the women means the rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler tend the toil where one reposes, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses.
And so we extinguish our chalice this morning with the words, be kind, be brave, be just, be merciful, be hopeful. This is how we keep the chalice flame burning until we are together again to light it anew. We are democracy, unruly, unfinished, unrelenting, people of rebellious joy taking to the streets, underground resilience, resisting complacence, the pleasure of activism organizing into simple hope. We are democracy, people of principles taking on principalities, witnessing the worth of those called unworthy, justice now gaining ground, integrity of interdependent existence extending, living democracy in heads, hands, hearts. We know that democracy can die, ossify, brittle byproducts of bygone idealists, plotting politicians pirating votes, corporations cannibalizing our care for the world. Look, it can wither, distend, come to an end. Democracy, today we will love you alive, make you ours, make you thrive, and vote as though our hope is on the line. Amen.